Hello and thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Brandis Friedman. Here's what we're looking at. Illinois tolls are going up starting next year to fund a major construction plan. A look at what impact that could have. And Illinois is building new housing at one of the slowest paces in the country. What's the holdup and some possible solutions? First off tonight, the Democratic National Convention will not be returning to the Windy City in 2028. The committee announced its first round of host city cuts, eliminating Chicago and Atlanta from the running. Leadership did not say why the city was dropped from contention, but it would have been unprecedented to host back-to-back nominating conventions after also hosting back in 2024. Chicago has also bid for the 2032 convention, but no decision made for that year yet. Meanwhile, Boston, Philly, and Denver are still in the running for the DNC 2028. Houston will host the Republican National Convention. Illinois Republicans made their pitch to voters during Republican Day at the State Fair.
What we're up against is it's common sense versus communism. It really is, folks. I want you to challenge, if you ever are one-on-one, 10-on-1, whatever it is with, a Democratic candidate, a Democratic activist, just ask them this question. Are you a capitalist? Do you believe in capitalism? And watch them go humana, humana, humana.
Fairgoers heard from Republican candidates running for statewide office in November's election, as well as party leadership in Springfield. The GOP is criticizing the state's majority party over property taxes, affordability, and corruption in politics. Democrats' Day at the State Fair was yesterday. The number of new HIV and AIDS cases diagnosed in Chicago could be hitting a low not seen since the mid-1980s. The Chicago Department of Public Health says preliminary numbers show 504 new HIV cases in 2025 and 236 new AIDS diagnoses. That's a 38% and 22% drop respectively compared to 2024. Diagnoses also shifted among demographic groups, with Hispanic Chicagoans accounting for 34% of new HIV cases, down from 50% in 2024. CDPH, though, cautions that these numbers are provisional. Final data will be published in December of this year. This news comes on the heels of a protest just yesterday where the AIDS Healthcare Foundation and advocates criticized the city over its handling of the Ryan White HIV/AIDS program funds. Up next, how taking the Tollway will soon take a bigger toll on your wallet. It's right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the Alexandra and John Nichols family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
The commute for many Illinois drivers is going to be more expensive starting next year. That's because the Illinois Tollway Board voted this week to raise fees on motorists by 45 cents per toll starting January 1st. Tolls on commercial vehicles are also going up by 30%. The money is going toward the Driving Connections Plan. That's a $26.5 billion investment in 7 Illinois interstates that will develop and repair roads. Supporters say the plan will save motorists time by creating new jobs and boosting economic activity, but opponents worry about increasing costs for residents at a time when affordability is already a top concern for many. Joining us are Mary Tyler, Transportation Director at the Illinois Economic Policy Institute, and Matt Wells, Vice President of the Midwest Truckers Association. Thanks to you both for joining us. Mary, the Illinois Tollway Board unanimously approved Driving Connections, that plan, just yesterday. Talk to us about how much is being invested and what types of projects the money will fund.
Oh, well, yeah, I think you already highlighted kind of the top lines of the $26.5 billion project. I have to be frank, I am not an expert on all the future projects that they are proposing. I can go into a lot more detail on the kind of the past and kind of benefits of what we've seen of the past capital program.
Generally then, just repairs.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're obviously going to look at expansion, the continuation of the Eastern O'Hare access project, 490, and general maintenance and things like that.
Matt, the Tollway hosted several community listening sessions on this plan before the board approved it. You attended some and voiced your opposition to driving connections. What are your concerns?
We have a number of concerns with what the Tollway has proposed and how they propose to pay for it. Initially, this plan was hastily put together. They will say that they planned this out for many, many years, but in all reality, they put this together over the last few months after the state legislature essentially approved the idea, even though they don't need it, approved the idea of increasing tolls 30% in an effort to appease a lot of the labor unions who were irritated about a transfer of funds out of the road fund to fund the new NEDA transportation district in Chicago.
Mary, you mentioned you co-authored a study looking at Illinois Tollway's previous capital plan,
Correct.
Move Illinois. What did you find there?
Yeah, so our report, it was the Illinois Economic Policy Institute did a report on the Move Illinois capital program to just really understand the impacts of both on the infrastructure and also on the economic impact of that. And I think, we can draw conclusions from what happened in the past capital program of what we can expect the future capital program will do. But really kind of the top lines are that it completed, some massive infrastructure projects that people can really, I think, see the difference of what was made. Look at the reconstruction of the Central Tri-State, which included the reconstruction of the mile-long bridge. That's an over $4 billion project. There was also the modernization of I-90, and also kind of a key connection point is at I-294 and I-57 was another one that was done. So, overall, we can see kind of a lot of those projects that have been done. They improved congestion, reduced that congestion. As a personal commuter on 294, I can attest to that. But then also, let me touch on the economic impact of what we saw. So this was $15 billion invested over 15 years, and that resulted in $28 billion in economic activity. So it's, on top of just these roadway improvements that we've seen, there's been, huge economic activity, and it produced 150,000 jobs, and that's not only just the direct construction workers, it's also the kind of industries that support construction, so whether that's engineering or the suppliers of materials, but then it's also the induced economic activity that's produced when more people have jobs. They're just naturally spending more money in the economy. And so overall, we can see a huge economic benefit, not only just on the actual money invested, but it actually stimulated the economy as well.
Matt, what do you make of that? Does Illinois have much to gain from a plan like this economically?
I think there are gains to be realized, but at what cost? And I think that's the question we continue to raise as to why these rates have to go up so quickly. Commercial rates are going up 30%. To give you an idea how much that really is, to bring a truck from South Beloit, Wisconsin to Gary, Indiana through the tollway system after January 1 will cost over $90 per truck just to use the tollway system. Those costs have to go somewhere. That means the consumers that those goods are being delivered to are going to have to pay an increased cost, and it's going to drive those rates up significantly from the very beginning. And the rate at which it's going to go up is going to be difficult for people who are already struggling with fuel prices, with grocery prices. Everything you buy in Chicago comes in on a truck in one form or another. And to raise those toll rates, you're going to see a lot of companies pass those costs on, and those are eventually going to be paid by the consumer. But the other concern that we have had with these increased toll rates, even though there may be some realized benefit 15 years down the road, is that this will put a lot of pressure on the non-tollway tributaries for those carriers that are maybe not in the for-hire trucking or a large trucking corporation. They're not able to raise those rates, or they're a private company that utilizes commercial trucks. They're going to try to avoid the tollway as much as possible to help control those costs for their customers. And we just see that there was a better way to go about this instead of hastily putting together this large of a $26.5 billion project in a matter of months. And then just the largest rate increase that has ever been done on this tollway. A lot of people tend to also forget that commercial trucks just seen a tollway rate increase in 2025, even though cars didn't see it, commercial trucks have. So we just see this was hastily put together, and we don't believe that the benefits are going to outweigh the cost in the short term or the next few years.
I also want to get your opinion, Matt, on the cost to non-commercial motorists. You know, driving connections raises the cost per toll by 45 cents for everybody else. How do you think that will affect someone who uses the tollway to commute to work, for example?
I think they're going to have to weigh very heavily how much they actually use the tollway. I know a lot of people say, oh, it'll be great, it'll be wonderful, but construction slows traffic down, and those costs, whenever you're trying to decide how much food to put on the table that week and gas in your car, or are you going to use the tollway or a non-tollway route? I think people are going to choose very carefully over the next few years because it's just another cost that people can't seem to stomach at this point in time.
Mary, a lot of drivers, they hear construction and they think of traffic delays and the road getting a little bit bumpy, right, when you're shifting lanes so that workers can do what they need to do. Lane closures, detours, will 15 years of construction not make congestion worse?
I mean, there's always going to be some level of congestion related to construction, but I mean, I think we need to look at it in the broader picture, and there's a cost to not investing in the roads, and if they just continue to deteriorate and they're not taken care of in the way that they should be, it's only going to cause bigger problems, longer construction periods in the future. This is something that we saw with the state of Illinois. You know, prior to the Rebuild Illinois Capital Bill passing, it went decades without enough investment, and there's a huge amount of backlog on their infrastructure system. The Illinois Tollway doesn't have that issue. They actually have 100% of their roads are considered in adequate condition compared to only 75% of the states, and 50% of them are considered in excellent condition, which compared to only about 30% of state like IDOT maintained roads. So there's the cost of not adequately investing in it, and I think the tollway has the benefit of these dedicated user fees that they can have a plan in place to ensure that their maintenance is being done in the time that it needs to get done, to ensure everyone has a good, safe, efficient way to get to work or for freight to get where it needs to go.
So we did receive a statement into WTTW from the Tollway Board, and it says the concerns of commercial drivers were accounted for, Matt, in the plan. They said, quote, the Tollway took the financial demands on commercial trucking businesses and drivers into account when developing the toll rate updates and driving connections program. It continues to say the new long-term capital program will continue to deliver opportunities to improve the driver experience and meet the needs of commercial truckers. Matt, do you not think this plan will also help truckers in the long run by upgrading the infrastructure that they rely on for their jobs?
Well, there's two things here. The reality, will it help? I'm not disagreeing that it probably could be better in the long run, that the improved road system. But what we're dealing with is the fact that the tollway never consulted with any of the trucking industry professionals about what those toll rates really would look like. Also, they have made promises in previous capital plans to improve parking along the tollway routes, which is a major concern for the trucking industry as we are federally regulated to stop our trucks at certain times because the federal law requires us to. They made that promise in the last capital plan, never happened. They didn't really make that promise in any part of this plan either. It was just an ancillary note like, oh yeah, we've thought about you. And unfortunately, we're standing here with empty pockets and a lot of empty promises that we're going to take into consideration better routes and traffics for the freight industry, and we just don't ever see a fruition from the tollway.
Okay. Unfortunately, that's where we'll have to leave it. Mary Tyler and Matt Wells, thanks to you both for joining us. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Up next, how can Illinois build more housing? That's right after this. Home prices in Chicago are rising faster than they have in years. According to Illinois Realtors, the median sales price jumped to $425,000 in July. That is 13% higher than last year. Fewer homes are hitting the market, and the ones that do are going fast. Similar patterns are popping up all around the state as new construction in Illinois struggles to keep up with demand. Joining us now are Chloe Groom, a board member for Strongtown Chicago, Jeff Baker, the CEO of Illinois Realtors, and David Doig, President and CEO of Chicago Neighborhood Initiatives. Thanks to all of you for joining us. David, start us off, please. What does the slow pace of housing construction mean for Illinois residents?
Yeah, so I think it means a few things. One is we're not growing, and so whether that's growing our economy or growing our population, by not creating enough housing to meet demand, that's forcing prices up. So in my mind, a lot of this is very much kind of a supply issue. And if we're not building, then of course you're going to see home values go up, you're going to see rents go up. So we've got to get on a pace to really build. If you look at other states around the country, they're passing us up, and not just marginally, but by like big numbers. And so we've got to be intentional, and we've got to be much more specific and directed around building homes at a scale and at a pace that starts to meet the demand.
Jeff, what are the barriers you see to building new homes?
There's a combination of factors, some of which are out of the control of Illinois and some of the communities, but there are things here in our own state that do contribute to the lack of construction. A lot of that is at the local level, a lot of local regulations, building and zoning codes, which are decades old and haven't been reviewed or refreshed in all that time. And over time, those have contributed to builders looking elsewhere to build where it's easier and more economical, especially when looking at building certain typologies of homes, missing middle homes, and that sort, not just a high income home. So a lot of the local regulations that you hear about, single family zoning, large lots, and then permanent review processes that take an extended period of time. All of that can add up and increase the cost of new homes and can force builders to say that this just isn't worth it here in Illinois.
And just so that we're all on the same page, when you say missing middle homes, we're referring to homes for middle income families, right? Like not necessarily low income affordable housing, but affordable for people in the middle of that income bracket.
These are teachers, firemen, policemen, people with good paying jobs.
Chloe, what kinds of housing could Chicago be better at building?
I think the most ironic thing is that Chicago could be better at building 3 flats, 4 flats, which are considered classic Chicago architectural icons. But right now, they're not allowed to be built in more than 60% of the city's residential land.
What would be the benefits of a mixed housing stock?
Yeah, well, it gives kind of like you said, it gives regular working people, teachers, childcare workers, service workers the opportunity to live in their neighborhoods where they work, where they serve.
David, what are some of the unique challenges with trying to build specifically in the city of Chicago?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a number of kind of hurdles. One is, we have a pretty restrictive building code here. I mean, the fact that we still have to use copper for supply. We've got issues, as Chloe said, around zoning. I think there are issues around labor. It costs more to build in Chicago. There's bureaucracy, and so there's the time to get a building permit. There's issues around some of the public infrastructure and how do we access that. So it's a lot of things. There's no one thing in particular that like we can point to and say if we just fix this, that would take care of it. It's all of these things have to work together, and there's got to be an intentionality and a commitment on the part of public leadership to move this forward. And I think I think the mayor has done a good job in terms of this cut the tape initiative, but we got to go further. Like we've got to cut down these permitting times, and we need leadership that focuses like a lot more on building and growing. I think if you look at places like Austin, Texas, or Dallas, or Denver, Phoenix, I mean, these cities are adding 15,000 units a year. Last year in the city of Chicago, the building department issued 4,200 residential permits for the whole city. There are cities like a third the size of Chicago that are building twice and 3 times as many units. And so, how do we start to break down those barriers and allow builders to be able to build at pace and scale so that we can start to meet this issue of demand? I mean, that's the issue, and we're never going to solve the affordability problem until we really start to build at a quicker pace and at a greater scale.
Jeff, give us a sense of the demand, right? How much building needs to be done? How much building, right, needs to be done to ease the crunch?
Yeah, there's a lot of different numbers out there, but I think the one that we all heard, I think Governor Pritzker was using, I think the current shortage is somewhere around 150,000 units. It'll be upwards of 250,000 here in a couple years. But if you look at, as David was just saying, the pace of construction, our shortage would require us to triple the amount of new home construction every single year for the next 5 years. That's just to meet today's demand, not 5 years ago.
Demand.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Chloe, how much room does Chicago have to grow?
Like I said earlier, more than 60% of the city right now doesn't allow anything other than a single family home. So that's one home for one family. And if you imagined, what if we allowed 4 flats again across all of Chicago like we did historically? That alone would give so many people so many opportunities and choices. So that's part of why I'm really excited about the governor's build plan. One of the bills that's part of that package would re-legalize really these classic homes of different sizes and shapes, and that would give families across the state of Illinois more choice.
Brandis, can I just, one thing on that? So the city of Chicago has 48,000 vacant lots, 48,000. And if you build 2 flats or 3 flats, that's like 75,000 new units of housing on already zoned, lots that would add to our population. We've got to start to rebuild our population base. If you go through the west side or south side, you look at the neighborhoods that historically had 70, 80,000 people, where there's now 30,000 people.
If you want vacant lots.
Yeah, and if you want quality retail, you want quality schools, you want to see crime go down, you got to repopulate. You got to put more eyes on the street, and we have the opportunity. Chicago's not like New York or LA, which are like fully built out cities. I mean, they have no vacant land. We have lots and lots of vacant land, but again, it takes leadership and it takes intentionality to build on those.
Yeah, so
lots.
whether it's 4 flats or 2, 3 flats, the space exists. The building
we have the capacity. We have the capacity.
Jeff, what are and we heard about the governor's build plan. Jeff, what are Illinois Realtors working on to change how housing is built?
Yeah, after the bill plan didn't come out of the General Assembly, we just this summer launched a housing supply accelerator program. The idea is to go into mayor's offices, go into city councils all over the state, and say, we all acknowledge this spring that there was a housing problem. A lot of local officials said that they wanted to try to tackle the problem. So we created a roadmap for them. We created an entire blueprint that can walk them through the entire process to study their own code, study all their own processes, figure out where they've inadvertently created some burdens, and then help them develop the solutions that can start to alleviate those burdens. So that accelerator plan's out there now. I've got an entire team of advocacy professionals that are working with mayors all over the state to start to try to chip away at this well before we come back to session next year.
And we did reach out to the Illinois Municipal League and received this statement from their CEO, Brad Cole, quote, "Municipal officials across Illinois remain dedicated to improving housing access and affordability, but those solutions should be developed through local partnerships, not statewide mandates that dictate a one-size-fits-all approach to every community. The focus on voluntary, locally driven solutions, which we have suggested from the beginning of these discussions, demonstrates that meaningful progress can be made on housing while preserving local decision making." Jeff, is local decision making, it sounds like it's part of the process, part of the approach that the Illinois Realtors are taking.
Yeah, the entire concept of the accelerator is to let every individual local municipality decide for themselves. So your city's results may look different than my city's. At the same time, that doesn't mean that there's not statewide action that can't be taken. There are, the state now controls a lot of minimum building codes. And so that's something that the state can work on that doesn't really infringe on any sort of local control elements. So while our accelerator does preserve that element of local control, there is still a major role for state lawmakers as well.
Chloe, residents have also expressed concerns that development in their neighborhood could sometimes lead to displacement. How can developers take those concerns into consideration?
Yeah, well, part of what Strong Towns Chicago does and what Strong Towns as a national movement is all about is empowering people in their neighborhoods to be small builders, home builders themselves. So part of what I really like about the build plan is that, yeah, you can get a conventional mortgage to finance a 4-flat. And right now, like, it can work with the housing accelerator that can give municipalities tools to build resources to help the folks in their cities become home builders themselves.
Okay, that is where we'll have to leave it. I'm going to trust the three of you on this problem. Thanks for joining us, David Doig, Jeff Baker, and Chloe Groom. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brandis.
And that's our show for this Thursday night. Sign up for our free email newsletter, Urban Nature, to stay up to date on environmental news, information on local wildlife, and much more. Tomorrow's edition includes details about a former Barrington Hills horse farm turned nature preserve. To find out more, sign up at WTTW.com/newsletter. And join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 7 for the Week in Review. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that contributes to public safety policy and guidelines.